Thank you, Jamie, or as we would call him if you worked at the ABC, James. Wonderful to be here. I reflected last night whether I should turn up. I heard Patricia talk about the challenge of social media. I was on social media last night and I saw a tweet that greatly offended me. And I had to reconsider my decision this morning. The tweet read this: "May the best team win, Queenslander," written by Glenn Garayan. I was upset, I was mortified, I decided to wear my blue shirt and turn up nonetheless. Look, I know I've got to be quick. I've got a clock here that's counting down, and I know that here on the stage is a trapdoor. At 18 minutes it opens and I'm deposited out onto the Wakehurst Parkway. They installed it here at C3 years ago, only occasionally used for an international guest speaker who might go off message halfway through the sermon and kind of disappeared out. So I need to keep hustling along here. And look, I suppose my proposition, I just want to make an argument as to why I believe these are good times for the media. And I believe the whole revolution that's taking place, the whole media revolution that we are in, is something that we can believe in and can give us hope. Now, there will be some days where I could come and give you a proposition why it fills me with despair. I think it is a balancing act. The revolution that's in our midst provides tremendous opportunity and tremendous risk. But today, I want to focus and give you a proposition of hope as to why I believe the revolution that we are in, this media revolution, should give us hope and provides tremendous opportunities to tell stories, to share stories, and to understand each other in a way that we've never understood it before. And I want to talk a little bit about our experiences at the ABC and what I've been learning at the ABC about this revolution, which is really, as Jamie said, I've been there for 9 years. So much of this revolution has just erupted in my time there. When I started, Facebook had only just been released to a broader audience beyond American college students. And now billions of people around the world using that one application every day. One of the interesting things about the media is that people never really anticipate the opportunity as it emerges. One of the first communications revolutions came with the invention of the telegraph. The ability to send messages long distances if linked up by the telegraph. But the famous philosopher Henry David Thoreau, the writer and philosopher Henry David Thoreau, when the telegraph was first proposed and the idea that you could link up American states with messages, he famously said, well, that might be true, but Maine and Texas, it might be, have nothing important to say. You know, why do we want to send messages or receive messages from them? But the telegraph became a bit of a revolution and it did allow messages to be sent. But very interesting, Samuel Morse, who invented the telegraph, we all know his name, he decided not to buy the patent that was available for the telephone. Because he said, why would anyone want a patent for that? That device won't work. There's no written record of communication. And Western Union, the company that had made a lot of money out of the telegraph, did exactly the same thing. And they asked the question whether any sensible man would transact his affairs by such a means of communication. And so they let that opportunity pass. And even in the 1930s, I like this one, the New York Times wrote an editorial critical of the typewriter because it said that it would give too many writers access to authorship. Certainly not something that we want to encourage. But it's not only recent times and new technology, it all goes all the way back to Socrates, who worried about writing being created because he saw it as the enemy of memory. And he said this was a concern. If there was writing, we wouldn't remember. And of course, those great early epic poems by Homer were all transmitted through an oral tradition of memory and sharing. And people did become worse at remembering because they didn't have to remember. But ironically, we know about Socrates' concern because Plato wrote it down. And we can read in Plato Socrates' concern. And it goes all the way through to more modern thinkers like Neil Postman, a great American writer and thinker. In his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, he suggested that television was destroying public discourse. So now we come to our era, and the smartphone is part of a revolution that's taking place in our lifetime. It is the most profound and transforming invention in mass communication since the invention of the printing press. And if you look at Gutenberg and the invention of the printing press, the revolution in innovation, invention, exploration, social reform that came a century after the invention of the printing press was as profound as anything that's been seen in the history of the world. And I believe that this device, this phone, is a similar kind of revolution. And I think when you look at the great inventions of the last century, history will look back at the transforming power of the aeroplane, the transforming power of the motor car, the transforming power of the phone. I was reflecting about the first phone I ever had, the first mobile phone I ever had, came in a suitcase. And it cost about $4,000. And when you left the office, it was almost so valuable and important, they'd handcuff it to your wrist. You know, don't come back without the suitcase and the phone. It had about 20 minutes talk time, and I was stronger and fitter there because it was so heavy to lift. And that was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And interestingly, there's been a report that's been released overnight. There's a terrific American analyst called Mary Meeker. And Mary Meeker every year does a report on the internet and trends around the internet. And in her report that's just been released overnight, some amazing statistics. In 1995, 1% of the world's population had a phone. In 2015, 20 years later, 73% of the world's population has a phone. 5.2 million mobile phones around the world, 60% of them smartphones. How quickly this revolution's come upon us. I remember when Apple released the iPhone, first of all, I sent someone who worked for us in New York to queue up in New York to get one because we all wanted to look at one. And they came back and we looked at it. It was like a really smart BMW sports car, beautifully designed, looked fantastic, very expensive. You knew you'd never have one yourself, but maybe you'd know someone who had one. But now the evidence suggests that more than 90% of Australians will have a smartphone within 2 years. And you can do everything on a smartphone, including make phone calls. It's amazing what this technology can do. And also in Mary Meeker's report overnight, she says that now in America, 9.9 hours a day is being spent on a screen. And she talks about the vertical screen, which is your phone. Nearly 3 hours a day people spend on that phone. It's the third appendage. And of course, many of us seem permanently attached to these phones. That's me in 1999. That's not actually me, but I can't quite... There's a really great slide that I can't move forward, but so someone might be able to move that. Oh, there it is. I love this picture. You see these people, everyone on the platform except this one guy I've circled up the back, not looking at a phone. We feel sorry for him. It's interesting, if you look at a photograph of people commuting in the 50s, they're all reading newspapers, they all have hats. Now, everybody has a phone. But the phone is so important, and this phone is improving journalism and how we communicate with each other. They can improve the way we uncover the truth. They can help us discover talent. They can help us share experiences. They can help us learn about each other and about the world. Some confronting moments. This is a photograph of the beating of Rodney King. Some of you will remember this, early 1990s. A man pulled over, and it came to light because these policemen attacked him. 4 LAPD police officers attacked Rodney King for a traffic violation. And somehow someone took a photograph, and this became known around the world. But now, of course, everybody in their pocket has a phone, has a camera, and record and document what is happening around the world. Now, I'm about to show something that I reflected whether I should show or not. Time will tell if this was wise. My grandfather's name was Walter Scott, and my name is Mark Walter Scott. And so when I saw online what had happened to a Walter Scott, it made me pay attention. So this shows unedited graphic footage of the shooting of a Walter Scott. Do you want to show that video footage now? What had happened is that a man had been stopped for a traffic violation. We can stop it there, I think. A man had been stopped for a traffic violation. The policeman reported that the man had stolen his stun gun, that Walter Scott had stolen the stun gun, and that he had shot the policeman had shot Walter Scott in an altercation after that. And that was the initial report. That's how the facts would have remained. But somebody walking by had a phone in their pocket. They filmed the footage, and the policeman who did that act, who shot that man who was running away from him unarmed, the policeman has now been charged with first-degree murder as a consequence of that. And I do believe that now the whole world is watching. We all have a camera in our pocket. We all have a phone in our pocket. And now, through the power of the media, what may once have happened in secret or would have been someone's eyewitness account versus someone else's eyewitness account can be shared and can be disseminated online, through media, through social media. And I believe that is going to be a transforming moment in the world. You know, when I sometimes spend time in China, and I look at the challenge of China, and I think one of the great questions the world will face and experience over the next 30 years is what happens in China. And I think one of the things that is going to be such a challenge for the Chinese government that can be repressive and can try and bring control is how do you bring control in a society with 800 million smartphones? How do you bring control in a society where 800 million people have access to the internet, where they're sending 3 billion text messages a day? The communication, the information, the dissemination of the truth can be so powerful and transforming. And we see it through social media and the transformation of social media. Now, this world has changed so quickly. This is a photograph of me at the Sydney Morning Herald as a journalist. Not quite, but that's what it was like. And I remember that at the Sydney Morning Herald, we used to subscribe to these wire services so that I could sit at my desk as news editor and I would know what had happened through Associated Press and the United Press International and AFP, all the news agencies around the world. And the Herald spent $500,000 a year so I could be in touch with what was happening all around the world. And I remember one day sitting in the newsroom. This will impress you, Jamie, as a big Frank Sinatra fan. I remember I was sitting there at the screen and the words just flashed, Frank Sinatra dead, and I stood up and yelled in the newsroom, Frank Sinatra's dead. And we remade the front page of the paper because he was one of the great entertainers of the 20th century. But of course, when Michael Jackson died some years ago, he broke the internet. Hundreds of thousands of messages being sent every minute around the death of Michael Jackson. So the ability to disseminate information and share information is really a remarkable attribute now for all of us. I want to talk quickly about some other things before that trapdoor, which is looming for me, opens up and I have to disappear. One of the great things, just some experiences about this new media world at the ABC. One of the great things it allows you to do is to uncover talent. We had this process a long time ago called Triple J Unearthed, and people used to have to send in cassettes, and people at Triple J would listen to the cassettes of young unsigned musicians. And we got this one from Melissa Higgins, a little song called All Is Believing. Well, Melissa Higgins turned into Missy Higgins and has sold albums all around the world. And if you go to that Triple J Unearthed website today, it's got nearly 500,000 registered users. 65,000 young Australians have uploaded their music to that site. There are 115,000 tracks. Every major new star that has emerged has had a pathway through Triple J Unearthed. I think of Jack Froggatt, a fellow known to many here. Jack Froggatt, talented musician, puts up his song on YouTube, 10 million plays. 10 million plays. You look at the crowd at that atrocity of the State of Origin last night, the 80,000 people. You'd have to do 125 nights of 80,000 people in a row to get the number of people who've heard his song. the ability for people with talent to be able to find and reach other audiences in new ways. One of the things about this new world is it allows you to watch and experience programming that you want at a time you want, on a device you want. The schedule is dying, and I sometimes think if you want a sense of this, you look at kids on our iView app. This was when we launched it with them. I love that little fella in the middle there. You know, because he wants to be able to watch the shows he wants at the time he wants on the device he wants right now. And I think we are moving to a world that you'll be able to watch any program created ever on that device, on that phone right now. And even on other things, I do think there is an opportunity for us to be able to come together and have a national conversation like the way the ABC did around mental health issues last year. On television and radio and online and mobile, to be able to broadcast, but be able to bring stories back and to share them, and for people to be able to share their own stories in their own way. Everywhere you look, the stories are richer, the voices are more varied. The ability to share and understand each other is greater than has ever been the case before. In the old days of media, there were a handful of people, really a handful of men, who were deciding what you could watch, what you could read, what you could listen to. And only the rarest of people could break through that and be in a position where they could create content that was really shared and found with a greater audience. And that's the era that we exist in now, and that's why I believe this is the greatest time ever for the media. We've brought a lot of these revolutions at the ABC, and if you look at the research around the ABC, one of the things that's really changed in the last decade is that the public now view us as innovative. Didn't always view us as innovative. We were lovely, we were there, people talked about us as auntie, affectionate, probably a touch old-fashioned. I hope we're not old-fashioned now with the leadership we've shown in creating iView and all these apps and ABC Unearthed and everything else we do. But the key to it, and this is I suppose my final point, the key to it is the people. The ABC's greatest competitive advantage is the people who work there. We may have a great brand, but brands can come and go. We may have great buildings and facilities. Everyone can have buildings and facilities. You can have a reputation, but that's all in the past. It's the people who will bring the revolution for you. And that's the thing I think is so significant. And so there's a line I often use. I'm not sure if it's my last slide up there. There's a line I often use when I talk to a staff, and they're the words from the American futurist John Shah. And John Shah said, "The future is not a place that we are going, it's a place that we're making. And the paths to the future are made, not found. And the process of making them changes both us and our final destination." And I think really for media organisations and for us at the ABC, no one is precisely able to anticipate where that future is, where that future is going. But together we can come together and try and understand the technology, understand our audiences, understand the opportunities, and we can create a future together, and we can work together as a team to deliver that future. And we go further when we go together. So I'm going to repeat that again. The future is not a place that we're going, it's a place that we're making. And the paths of the future are made, not found. And the process of making them changes both us and our final destination. Thanks very much.